The Galactic Academy stood as a monument to interstellar cooperation, its crystalline spires reaching toward the purple skies of Nexus Prime. Within its halls, students from 100 different worlds studied side by side, learning the arts of diplomacy, science, and warfare that would shape the future of known space. Olivia Chen had been the first human admitted to the Academy in 20 years. She sat in the back of advanced quantum mechanics, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic equations floating before Professor Zalthor, a towering Valkyrian whose scales shimmered with bioluminescent patterns when he grew excited about particularly complex problems. "Impossible," hissed Takesh, a reptilian draconid seated 2 rows ahead. His crimson scales caught the light as he turned to his companion, speaking loud enough for half the class to hear. Humans cannot comprehend fourth-dimensional mathematics. Their brains lack the necessary neural pathways. Olivia's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She'd heard variations of this argument for months now. Humanity was the newcomer to galactic society, barely a century removed from their first faster-than-light flight. Most species viewed them as primitive curiosities at best, dangerous wildcards at worst. Liam Park, the only other human in the academy, caught her eye from across the room and offered a slight shrug. Unlike Olivia, who attacked every challenge with fierce determination, Liam possessed an almost zen-like calm that seemed to unsettle their alien classmates even more than Olivia's intensity. "Now then," Professor Zalthor's voice rumbled through the chamber, "your assignment for the lunar cycle. Calculate the gravitational cascade effect of a collapsing wormhole on nearby stellar bodies, accounting for temporal displacement. Show all work. This will count for 40% of your final grade." A collective groan rippled through the classroom. Even the most brilliant students found Zalthor's assignments brutally difficult. The Valkyrian was known throughout the academy as the Dream Killer, having failed more aspiring physicists than any 3 professors combined. Takesh turned again, his forked tongue flicking out in what Olivia had learned was the draconid equivalent of a contemptuous laugh. Perhaps the humans should transfer to basic arithmetic. "I hear the younglings' classes have openings." "Takesh, enough," warned Professor Zalthor, though his tone lacked real conviction. He'd made no secret of his skepticism about human intellectual capacity. Olivia gathered her things as the class dispersed, her mind already working through the problem's parameters. She found Liam waiting for her in the corridor, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "You're going to spend every waking hour on this, aren't you?" he asked, falling into step beside her. "Someone has to prove them wrong. Or," Liam suggested mildly, "we could just pass the class and move on with our lives." But Olivia was already lost in thought, her fingers dancing through the air as she manipulated invisible equations only she could see through her neural interface. The next 3 weeks blurred together. While other students formed study groups and complained about the impossible workload, Olivia disappeared into the academy's vast library. She cross-referenced databases, ran simulations, and filled virtual notebooks with calculations that would have made most graduate students' heads spin. Liam checked on her daily, bringing food she barely touched, and offering insights she occasionally acknowledged with a distracted nod. He worked on the assignment too, but with his characteristic measured approach, viewing it as a puzzle to be solved rather than a war to be won. On the assignment's due date, Professor Zalthor stood before the class with what might have been a smile on his alien features. "I have reviewed your submissions. As expected, most of you demonstrated a fundamental misunderstanding of temporal mechanics. Takesh, your work was adequate. Burrell, yours showed promise. The rest?" He made a dismissive gesture with his 6-fingered hand. "However," the professor continued, his bioluminescent scales beginning to pulse, 2 submissions were not merely adequate, they were extraordinary." The room fell silent. Zalthor rarely offered praise. Liam Park's solution was elegant and efficient, approaching the problem from an unconventional angle that demonstrated genuine insight into the nature of space-time. Liam nodded politely, seeming unsurprised by the recognition, and Olivia Chen. Professor Zalthor's scales now blazed with light, a sign of intense emotion among his species. "Miss Chen did not simply solve the problem. She identified 3 errors in my original question, corrected them, then solved both versions. She also provided a supplementary proof that the temporal displacement equations we've been using for the past century are incomplete. She's proposed a modification that preliminary testing suggests may be correct. Every head in the classroom turned toward Olivia. Takesha's mouth hung open, his scales fading to a pale pink in what she recognized as shock. But that's not possible, Takesh finally managed. You're underestimated? Liam supplied helpfully. Professor Zalthor moved to the front of Olivia's desk, his massive form somehow conveying respect. Miss Chen, I owe you an apology. I doubted your people's capabilities. I was wrong. He turned to address the entire class. Let this be a lesson to all of you. The humans have something many of our species have lost: hunger. They approach problems like warriors approach battles, with complete commitment and refusal to accept defeat. We would do well to learn from them. As the class filed out in stunned silence, Takesh approached Olivia hesitantly. Would you consider tutoring me? I clearly have much to learn. Olivia studied the Draconid for a long moment, then smiled. Sure, but you're buying the coffee. Or whatever you drink. I've been living on caffeine for 3 weeks. Walking out of the academy that evening, Liam bumped his shoulder against hers. Told you you'd show them. We showed them, Olivia corrected. Your solution was brilliant too. Mine was practical. Yours was art. As they crossed the campus beneath alien stars, neither of them noticed the small crowd of students following at a respectful distance, hoping for a chance to ask the humans for help with their studies. The little dragon who loved homework had done more than leave her classmates speechless. She'd changed their entire perspective on what humanity could achieve. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, on a blue world called Earth, millions of humans continued their climb toward the stars, driven by that same relentless hunger, to prove they belonged among the cosmos's greatest civilizations.